So here we are at the end of the fourth German turn of the Barbarossa scenario. Um, and I will, for the historical record, as it were, I will do a sort of a sweep of the entire map so that we can see what is positioned where, and basically we can see which um, cities that the Axis forces control. And as near as I can make it, let's see, I counted 19 cities or 19 points, but that includes the excuse me, the oil fields here at Ploesti, and also Finland up there, for a total of 19 now. Um, and as far as other factors go, we did have there was a surrendered unit, so that meant that that moved up by one uh, because it was an event, as it were. But the other thing that pushed it back down to zero was the fact that we had Pearl Harbor. So, near as I can tell, the Germans presently have 19 um, victory points. They would, let's see if I can do this with one hand, just keep you looking at the old map there, just have an interesting viewpoint. Let's see. At the end of game turn 5, the Axis player wins if his final score is 23 or more victory points, or he has taken Moscow and another objective city. So we'd have to have 23 or more. So that's up here. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. They'd have to score 4 more victory points, the Germans, to do it the points way, as it were. So that could be done, for example, by taking 4 cities. That sounds like a bit of a tall order. What could they imagine? Let's be optimistic here. What might they be able to take? Well, just in the extreme. Okay, let's see. There's Odessa. There's Sevastopol. Technically, they could reach Kharkov. Technically, they could reach Stalino, Voronezh. Yes, Tula. I suppose there are places, but yeah. More realistically, they're going to have a pound again at Leningrad. I'm not sure how feasible it is for the Russians to attempt to dislodge these chaps here in Moscow. Obviously, if they could move forward, form around them, and pound away, but they've got 13 strength points and they're in a city. So, they're in an objective city as well. So that's 2 column shifts. So that sounds like an awfully tall order, even with a Russian shock marker. Up here, on the other hand, they might be able to make something significant happen if perhaps if some of these units, let's see, we can move 4, so they could go 1, 2, 3, 4, but they can only move 3. They can't make it there. They can. So let's say, for example, these 2 units could attack that, because all 3 units could attack that there. But I'm sure the German player would be sure to put a counter blow up here, which would make him require to attack them. So anyway, interesting possibilities. And let's see if we take a look at the upcoming. Well, now we've got this coming on for the Russians. So we've got 2 reasonable army groups coming on, or rather fronts. Let's see, Volkhov and Crimean. And then in the next turn, it'll be, was it Long Winter? Again, the Germans the Germans will be able to have replacements. Okay, great for the Germans. 3 shock markers for the Soviets. But note this: on that particular turn, there are 2 shifts to the left for the Soviets if they are defending. So it's going to make it even more difficult to attack them in the next German turn, which of course is the final German turn of the Barbarossa scenario. So anyway, that's the situation at the end of turn 4, at the end of German turn 4. Okay, great. Okay. I'm sure some experienced players will have noticed a particular questionable item in the strategy of the German commander in the fourth turn here. We haven't got started on the Russian turn yet. We're kind of still hanging on here at the end of the German fourth turn because this is the first time I've played the game, and now comes the big reveal, as it were. The problem was that the over-enthusiastic German commander surged forward with 2 panzer armies into Moscow, and I've since made an adjustment. The thing is that these 2 armies were fighting here against the Moscow unit, or the unit that was in Moscow. It wasn't called the Moscow unit, but I believe it was actually this unit here, wasn't it? Kalin in front. And they caused them to retreat. Okay, no, wait a minute. No, yeah, forget that. Forget them. They caused them to retreat. Where did they go? They went up there, I think, didn't they? Something like that. But anyway, the point was they kicked them out of Moscow. Then they had the opportunity to move into Moscow. Both units could move into Moscow. And I moved both units into Moscow. Now, the only thing, of course, is that if they were both there, they would be out of supply. In the Russian turn, they would be marked as out of supply, and then towards the end of the Russian turn, we check supply again, and they would still be out of supply. So they would be, whatever it is happens to, or they would surrender. That's right, they would end up in the surrendered units box. Oh, horror, horror, horror. So I am not going to do that. I have kept back the 3rd Panzer so that now they're both in supply, because here's Smolensk here, supply running here, and he's got his supply running from 3rd Panzer, of course. You can do that with, you can trace supply 1 hex to a unit that is in supply to a city, okay? So now, of course, the Russians might still try to do some sort of maneuver to cut off supply, etc., but we shall see. But they're not going to. They had just walked into, well, you might call it a trap, but they had put themselves into a very silly situation if they had both gone in there, because there would be nothing that could have changed that, other than perhaps, I suppose, what might have happened might have been if, the Russians might have made a poor attack or something like that, and then lost their supply block against the Panzer armies going to Smolensk. But anyway, it would have been a foolish thing to do. So we've done that. Now that does mean that, yes, they've taken Moscow, but with small forces. So that, of course, means that it's now much more likely that the Russians might be able to put together some sort of attack that has a chance of dislodging the Germans there. That's possible, but as I said, if they hadn't done that, then the Russians could have just sat there, done nothing, and those 2 units there would have been lost. Worse than that, they would have surrendered, which would have moved their victory points down 2 points from the 2 surrendered units. So it would have been a disaster, basically. So yeah, I've fudged it. I've done that. This is a learning game for me, and that's where we've ended up. So now we can move on to the Russian turn 4. Okay, there is a lot going on in this Russian 4th turn. Not much going on down here, but the Russians, of course, they had 2 units of reinforcements. They also had a unit which was taken from here as replacements. Used 1 card to do that. And so those units have come on, and basically what the Russians have decided to do, not surprisingly, is they've loosened up their line down here. Men have moved out of Voronezh and Kharkov. They've moved up here. Basically, units that appeared here have moved this way, and the idea is to attack. Except in Leningrad, where the forces are so minimal that has not been done. They're just going to stay there. The Germans have not decided to use counter blows up there. And let's see, it's not like they've got loads of cards. And also the odds are not that great. So anyway, down here, basically, the Russians have used all efforts that they can to surround the unit that is in Moscow, not surprisingly. And of course, they've got their shock markers, which in this turn, this particular turn, move the combat results table fully 2 column shifts in their favor. So that's a huge benefit in this particular turn. So what we've got then is the Germans did use a counter blow here. So we've ended up with, we've got these 2 Russian units are going to be attacking this unit here. This unit here, which is surrounded, has to attack them. This unit here has to attack this unit here. And then this unit will attack there. And then all 4 of those units will attack here. So those are the things that are going on. Now, things might shift and change and so forth. So what I'm trying to do, the first thing I want to do is have the Soviet attack against Moscow here, because when a unit retreats, it cannot retreat through enemy zone of control, even if there's an enemy unit there. So they can't retreat to here. I just want to get Moscow done first, and we'll see what happens after that. So we've got 16 points attacking, and we've got 7 defending. So that is a 2-to-1. They get 2 defensive shifts in their favor because they're in a city, which is also an objective. But we go 2 shifts the other way because of the shock. So the 2-to-1 stays a 2-to-1. And let's see. Right. So then we go ahead and roll up, see what we get. Ooh, not so good. 2. And let's see. So it's 2-to-1 with a 2, which is a counter blow. So that means that the key thing is that the Germans remain there in Moscow. The Germans do have some cards that they could play. Let's see. And if that was the case, then we would have okay, we're going to stick with that. So let's go ahead and sort that out. All right, we flip the target marker and put it onto one of the attacking units. So the Russians chose to put it on that unit. So that means that in his turn, he has to attack that unit there. Okay. Or rather, in the German turn, any units adjacent to that unit, or at least one unit, if any are adjacent to that unit, have to attack it. Okay. So moving on, let's see, we've got these chaps here. So if we remember, these have to attack them, so they are going to attack them. So if they attack them, they're attacking them at 1-to-2 with a column shift for the forest. So that becomes a 1-to-3. But then back 2 column shifts because of the shock. So that ends up in the 1-to-1 column. And let's see what we get there. Let's roll up for that. Ooh, not so good. Another 2. So it's 1-to-1 with a 2. Let's see what we got out of that. And we have a no effect result. Okay. So let me tidy that up. All right, let's see if we can have some fun down south. Things aren't going the way of the Soviets at the moment. But, right, so down here we've got total of 6 doing the counter blow on this unit here. So they are 1-to-2, but they've got 2 column shift. So their 1-to-2 becomes a 3-to-2 instead. And we'll go ahead and roll that up and see what we get with a 3-to-2. Let's see if we can get something decent this time. Right, they've rolled a 4, so that is 3-2 with a 4 would be an exchange. The German, let's see, the German player is looking at his cards at the moment. And let's see, we could... not sure if we want to do that there. Let me have a think about this. Yeah, the Germans have a card, but it won't affect that result. So I just looked on the combat results table, and it would shift them to a different column, but it would have the same result. So they're not going to waste the card doing that. So we'll get rid of the shock, and we can get rid of the counter blow. And wouldn't you know it? So that is where they got their good result. So we've had a loss of a step there, and we're going to lose one of the Soviet units. I'll think about that. Okay, then we're going to have the Caucasus front here is going to attack. Interesting to note, I just looked that up now. You can see from the terrain effects chart that the river is would be a column shift, but not in snow. So there we go, frozen river, let's say. So we've got 3 against there are 9 here. So that's simply 1 to 3, plain and simple. Let's see what we can do with that. Not much, I wouldn't think. Well, we finally get a 6. Okay, so we've got 1 to 3 with a 6, which actually gives us defender retreat. Now, the interesting thing there, of course, we see the Russian unit there, which is, of course, out of supply, so it has no zone of control. Yes. So that means that they can retreat. Now, the German, once again, is now considering his mysterious cards. Let's see. Looking at the options, 1 second. And yeah, the tables were definitely turned there because the German player played his hold at all costs card, which should be played at any time during the Soviet combat phase. All defender retreat results are treated as exchange results for the remainder of that Soviet combat phase. What a powerful card. So anyway, that means that they lost a step, and they lost a step too, which puts them over there in the destroyed units. So yeah, it was a tough gig for them, obviously. A tough gig, what am I saying? It was a very tough assignment for them because they were attacking at 1 to 3. So not surprisingly, they came off rather badly. And so that's the magic of the counter blow there. And so then finally, what do we have here? We've already done that one, haven't we? Yeah. So what we finally have is this situation here. So the Soviets have 3, and the Germans have 3. The river is not a factor, as we've discovered, so it's a counter blow. So it's a 1-to-1 counter blow. And let's see what we've got. Oh, we've got a 6. This could be promising. Let's see. Is there anything that the Germans can do there? Yes, they've still got 1 card, which could be used even after the die is rolled. So they've got a 6. Remember now, though, that they would have a defender retreat, but now for the rest of the, where is it? All exchange results are treated, so defender retreat results, sorry, are treated as exchange. So of course it bites both ways, isn't it? It's hold at all costs. So, yeah, they're holding at all costs, which means that they are going to drag them down with them, but they are going to be eliminated rather than retreating. It's not an option. No. Okay, so there's so much texture in this game. I love it. So that means that German unit has actually been eliminated. So not quite sure where I put that. Just for the time being, I'll pop it over here by the cards. And it, of course, means that this Soviet unit has, well, over there. And wait a minute. No, this German unit is going to end up here, isn't it? Of course it is. Just like the Soviet units. And tidy up the board, get rid of that. Okay. Well, that was an interesting result. Yeah, just a second. And so, right, that is actually the situation that we find at the end of the Russian fourth turn. So let's take a look at, we'll zoom in close as it were and work our way down from Leningrad. And then we come down to Kalinin and the Moscow region, Tula, move a little south to Voronezh and Kharkov. Zoom out a little bit here. And there we have Stalino, Dnipropetrovsk, and Odessa, and Sevastopol. That's where we're at. And in that turn, no, let's see, nobody surrendered. There's nothing here. No cities changed hands. Let's see, the Germans have held on to Moscow. So will they be able to hang on to it and take Leningrad as well? Well, I mean, who can say? So fascinating stuff. And we're getting ready now for the German fifth turn, which is the fifth and final turn of the Barbarossa scenario. Well, I did make one change to the end of the Russian turn, and that is this chap here, who has shown up in Tula. Because, let's see, these cadre units are a new thing. You didn't see anything like this in the Russian campaign, as far as I can remember, anyway. So it's a new concept that I'm having to wrap my head around. And, yeah, cadre unit became available, I don't know, a couple of turns ago, or maybe turn 3, something like that. Went into the cadre units available box, which means that when we have a situation like here, which happened at Tula, where there was an exchange and the Russian unit that was there was taken off the map. Let's see, to go from the rules here, we've got cadre units on map placement. Cadre units in the cadre units available box are voluntarily placed on the map by their owner in a hex where a friendly non-cadre unit with strength values on both sides of its counter was just eliminated to fulfill a step loss requirement of a DD or EX result. Okay, removal of a non-cadre unit from the map by any other means, inability to retreat, lack of supply, etc., does not allow a cadre unit to be placed in that remove unit's hex. Okay? Okay, it's German turn 5. And this is the last turn of the Barbarossa scenario. And there's going to be a lot going on. It's very interesting. So just as we get into it, one thing that I noticed was that I had made a mistake in that the Soviets should have drawn one card fewer in their last turn because the Axis controlled Moscow, so they had one card left. So I discarded that card. So now the Soviets once again find themselves with no cards. It's not their turn, of course. They'll draw 4 cards, of course. The Germans have drawn their cards, and then we're looking at the supply situation. And I had initially thought that this Panzer army here, the 2nd Panzer, was out of supply because it's so completely surrounded, almost completely surrounded. But of course, it isn't completely surrounded. And the key point is this, that friendly units negate enemy zone of control for the purpose of tracing supply. So that means that if there's no zone of control being exerted by this unit or by that unit there, because these friendly units are here, he can trace supply to Smolensk by simply going 1, 2, not through there because there's zone of control there. So he can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's getting a supply directly from there. So he's not out of supply. And as it turns out, then no one is out of supply. Next thing we did or rather the German commander did, was to look at the overall strategic picture. And the thing is that there appear to be two possibilities for actually winning the campaign that are just potentially within the grasp of the Axis forces. They have 19 victory points, and if they can get 4 more, get it up to 23, and hold those until the end of turn 5. So that means they can, if they take cities, they have to retain those cities, keep them despite any potential Russian attacks in the Russian turn. Okay, so what have we got? Well, of course, we know that that's one way. The other way is that, of course, if they can take and hold Leningrad as well. Now, the nasty thing for the Soviets at this point is that they have no cards. So that means they can't do any counterblows. That means that if the Germans, for example, these two stacks here, if they attack, there can be no Soviet counterblow, coming from the northwest. So it's all that lot onto there. Still not fantastic because this is a long winter turn. And also on this particular turn, turn 5, there are 2 shifts to the left for the Soviets when they're being attacked. So if the Germans attack them here, because of it's an objective hex and it's a city hex, they're going to get fully 4 shifts to the left there. So anyway, there's that. Then the other way, of course, as we said, is on the points. So they would have to get 4 more points. So they would have to take and hold 4 cities that they don't have now. And of course, they'd have to hold on to all the cities that they have as well. Right. So what's the possibility of that? Well, as far as we can see, it can be done just about. If we take these chaps here, come to Stalino, they'll attack there, and maybe they can take Stalino. That would be 1. These chaps here move to Kharkov. That would be 2. These chaps, the 1st Panzer, move to Voronezh. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, move to Voronezh. So that would be 3. And then the 4th can be Tula. If Tula can be taken, it's only got this very low value cadre unit in there. If that can be taken and held by these 2 units here coming across that way. The other thing, of course, is that, there's one change that's happened. I've already got a little bit ahead of myself here. This unit, the Germans had a particularly, let's see, what was it? Oh yeah, they had a card that is the backhand blow card, which is to remove Soviet counterblow markers. Well, the thing is, they know that they won't be needing that card because the Soviet player has no cards and so can't do any counterblows. So therefore, they paid that card in to be able to flip this unit back to its full strength. So he's flipped. He's not attacking anyone, but he is moving into Voronezh. No one can stop him doing that, and he wants to be in good shape for when the Soviets possibly try a counterattack in their turn. And then beyond that, let's see. That's right, yeah. Part of the plan is that the Germans will also pay another card and release this 4th Army from here, which will then be placed on at Smolensk, which will then be able to, will be a force in being in order to defend it, because, of course, the Soviets will be able to break off from here and attack it in their turn. And, of course, they do have 3 shock markers that they can use, and they don't have the awful 2 shifts to the left that the Germans are experiencing attacking the Soviets in this January-February turn of 1942. So that's the overall situation.